You will find that some of today, what you learn, will seem very tricky. Like, that's tricky. And you're going to think that a lot today, and that's because it is. It is tricky, and it is very goal-oriented, very outcome-based. And that is, today is the most important thing that you must set up first before you ever try to use sleight of mouth is an outcome. What do I want to accomplish with this skill? There's a certain thing that I want to achieve. You have to make it clear, have it crystal clear, because sleight of mouth is easy to do for anyone. It's something that we start doing when we're children. And it's because until you have a good understanding of language and logic, you make equivocation fallacies. You equivocate things unnecessarily. You say, well, if this is true, this must be true. We do this throughout as we grow, and it's one of the reasons why this works is because we never actually outgrow that.
It's part of human nature.
It's part of human nature, is to create logical fallacies. And the reason that sleight of mouth works is because you're taking advantage of the human capacity to not be able to follow along and not be able to equivocate accurately, and you're also using that person's emotional desire for change to also facilitate that. So you've got two things working in your favor. First of all, it's the human capacity to not understand logic and to make logical fallacies. And then secondly, it's that they really do want this change. They're emotionally connected to the result that you're emotionally connected to, so they're more willing to go along with the logical fallacies and the sleight of mouth. So this is a broad umbrella of what we're going to be learning today. I'm sure that some people kept up and some people were like, I'm totally lost. You will get this mostly by watching today and watching how I do it. You'll learn a lot, but you also will instinctively start to realize you kind of already do this. And you'll get more intentional about this, okay? I'm gonna go ahead and shut that back door and we'll get started. Okay, so in language, we have a few different terms that make up a sentence. They make up language. One of those is pragmatics, that's the meaning of what you say. And then one of those is syntax, and that is the structure, okay? The structure of a sentence and the meaning of the sentence. These are two things that we're going to focus on a little bit today, but we're not going to be doing like grammar and diagramming sentences and stuff like that. We're going to just get the overview that you have a meaning to what you say, you have a meaning that you get across with body language, tonality, different things like that. You have a meaning. But you also have a structure to the sentence. It's laid out in a formula. And if this is true, then this is true. Okay, so we're doing a lot of causality. Today, when you are focusing on using this, you want to focus mostly on what outcome would I want to achieve with this skill. So in using language, you're going to be persuading someone else to make some sort of change, to buy your product, to quit doing a certain habit, to adopt a new habit. These are all certain things. I use sleight of mouth a lot with my substance abuse folks. So people that come to me with a nicotine addiction, that are smoking and they want to stop, we do a lot of sleight of mouth. Okay, and the reason why is, like I said, they actually want this outcome. They want to no longer smoke. That's what they hired me for. They emotionally want that. Now, when they begin talking to me about why they smoke and why they want to smoke, my ears just go up big and I'm listening to all of their frames of reference. What is it about this that excites them? What is it about that makes them happy? And I start to switch them. I start to change their association with it. So, does anyone here today have any type of habit or something that they do that they know isn't really good for them? And you don't necessarily have to even want to get rid of this. I'm just going to show you how this works. You don't have to want to get rid of it. I'm not going to do an outcome today. I'm just going to show you how it works. And the reason that I told you to have an outcome is because when you're watching me do this, if you don't have an outcome, you can realize really quickly that it just gets tricky. It just really, if you don't have an outcome, you just start to spin your wheels. Somebody else will you just kind of start getting in a loop of cognitive dissonance where they just can't really defend their beliefs, why they're doing this. Does anybody have any type of habit that you know you do? You eat ice cream every night, anything like that that probably you would be better off if you didn't?
No, I used to dip, so I know all about nicotine.
Now, whenever you would dip, what was it about that first that made you want to crave it?
Since I started it back in junior high, it was just I got used to the nicotine hit, basically during class, that I just sat there and dip, right? It's just that.
And what did that feel like?
It was alertness.
Alertness.
And I know for a fact that came from being sleep deprived over time. It was and so I craved it a lot.
Yeah.
Because between the caffeine, sugar, and the nicotine, it was all that was your
just that hit, and then you just immediately alertness.
Yeah.
Yeah. So when in sleight of mouth, you want to make note of, like he would say the nicotine hit. Okay, that was one thing that he liked, and that to him is a thing. To nobody else in here will that linguistic label mean as much as it means to him. Okay, so that's a thing that he got, was a nicotine hit. It's a thing to him. That's a specific feeling that he gets. Another thing that he got was alertness. Okay? Now, when you're hearing these things, these labels that people are attaching to it, that's their syntax, that's their structure of what they're trying to convey to you. They're sending you a code, and that's their structure. They're saying that I got a nicotine hit, there was an alertness there. Now, what I want to do is start to mismatch those in sleight of mouth. So when they give me that nicotine hit equated with the alertness, I'm going to unequate them somehow. Okay? Because right now there's an equivocation. When I do this, I get this. Okay? So now we have to unequivocate those. Is there another time whenever you would do it and you wouldn't feel alert? Was there ever a time whenever it would make you not feel good?
Probably only when we were like out in public and stuff.
Sure. And what was it about that would make you feel badly?
Because it was a pretty nasty habit.
There you go. So it was nasty, right? And what about it made you feel like it was nasty?
Just spitting in the cup and all that.
Spitting
goes with it.
and things like that? Okay, so now what I'm doing is I'm starting to identify the things that he thinks are negative. So, first of all, what does this word mean? It means something different to everyone in here. Okay? These are all, language is a code. You have to understand that these are all references. We're referencing things. The real thing that I know is that this is negative. Okay? And this is positive. Okay? So really what we're trying to do is trying to make this association stronger. Now he's already handled this, which is why this is great. Which is why we're dealing with this specific issue, is because he's already knocked this thing out. But I'm showing you how you can do this through language. So now that he identifies that it's nasty, and one of the things that's nasty about it, okay, so he's giving me everything that I need to know what it is that he doesn't like about this. Okay? So whenever you're spitting and everyone's seeing you be real nasty, why does that make you feel bad?
It can be embarrassing at times because you know it's not a clean habit. Right? It's not, and that's my problem with vaping, is that vaping is cleaner but still has the nicotines, and some of the negative side effects for people. But
good. Mike doesn't want to be embarrassed. It's embarrassing. Okay? So he's giving us everything that he needs to associate it with negativity. Okay? Now with sleight of mouth, all you're going to do is start to substitute that in over here on the positive. So whenever you're really embarrassed and you're feeling nasty and you're spitting in a cup, what is it about the nicotine hit that is better than that?
Probably nothing.
Nothing, right? See? So what I did was I took and built all of this up. I created a mountain out of it. Whenever you're embarrassed and you're being nasty and you're spitting into a cup, I'm layering in all the negativity and then feeding you back the positive thing that you used to like.
So the really embarrassing part about this is, and why I quit, was our son at what, 2.5, started going around the house.
There you go. Right.
Ours did that too.
Yeah, because I did it too. I did it too. Yeah, I did it
And
too.
it embarrassed him too.
Yeah, it embarrassed me too.
He was like, I do not want to.
And it wasn't necessarily that I minded him ever doing this. You know, at some point, if he ever decides that he wants to do this, that isn't the problem. The problem was that I didn't want my little kid walking around spitting into a cup. It was just gross, that, you know. And so I agree with you. I agree with you 100%. And that is why this is so easy for me to demonstrate sleight of mouth in this example, is because you've already beat it.
Yeah.
If you hadn't already beat this, it would actually be a much, like everybody would be seeing this happen in real time,
Right.
in the way that I'm doing it, and I wouldn't even really have to show it. Like people would see it in real time. But because you've already beat it, it gives us a good example and a good way for me to teach this. Okay? So there is another way that I did this one time. There was a woman who contacted me because she was in a very solid relationship with somebody and had been with them for about 4 years. But all of a sudden, out of nowhere, she starts late at night remembering and having these emotional feelings about her ex. And she starts having romantic feelings about him, and she doesn't want these. She doesn't know where this came from. There's dreams that are happening out of nowhere, and she just wakes up the next morning and she's just like thinking about this guy, and she's like, I don't want him. I don't know where this is coming from. So when she called me, I said, hey, why'd you guys split up? And she said, well, you know, he didn't want kids, and I have a son. And I said, is your son still in the house? And she said, yes. And I said, how long is your son still going to be in the house? She said, quite a while. And I said, okay, so when your ex sneaks in at night with his scissors to cut your son out of your life, what about that is romantic? That's sleight of mouth. I introduced the concept of what caused her to leave him and to separate, along with romance. So this thing that she kept feeling was this romantic feeling late at night, and she only associated it with good. I took what she gave me as the negative thing that caused her to leave that relationship and inserted it there. In that moment when things are going well, when she's enjoying it, when she's liking that emotion, I insert the thing that she didn't like, the thing that made her leave. That's sleight of mouth. I'm introducing something that she hasn't introduced, although she gave me both things. Okay? And that's the most important thing. First of all, you have to have a clear outcome. What was the outcome? What did she hire me for?
Get rid of that feeling.
That's right. So what was in my head the whole time, what am I thinking about? Get rid of the feeling. So I have to find, first of all, what triggers the good, what triggers the negative, swap them. Okay? And this is sleight of mouth. It works very, very easily, and everyone in here who has ever worked with children in any capacity has used it. Would you rather go to bed at 8 or 8:30? You're limiting their choices to this frame. It's sleight of mouth. You're limiting them. With your language, you're restricting it. You're setting up the rules. Okay? So that's what you're doing in sleight of mouth. Now, how does this work in sales? Let's say somebody comes in and they're interested in your product. Why does somebody first walk in and are they interested in your product? Anyone? Why would somebody first approach you?
Have a need.
They have a need, right? And so when they come to you, are they coming to you because they are running away from something or running to something?
Towards.
That's what we want, right? Oftentimes people are running away from something. You have to identify first what they're doing. Are they running toward your product or are they running away from a pain? And they're trying to determine whether or not your product is the right thing to solve that pain. Okay? That's what most people are doing. Most people are fishing for information. They're trying to find out if you're going to solve my problem. And if you don't answer the questions the right way, then you're not going to solve the problem, and they're out.
So is it true then that one of your first steps is trying to uncover what their pain points are?
That's correct. So you're trying to identify, are you running from something or are you running to something? Why'd you come in today? What are you looking for? Why are you here? All of those things are all questions to determine what? You're trying to determine what's the pain or what's the pleasure. You're here for pleasure or pain, one of them. Which one? That's what you're always trying to determine. Okay? Once you identify whether they're here for pleasure or pain, that's whenever you can start to implement sleight of mouth, because there is a pleasure and there is a pain no matter what. So if they're leaving a situation and coming to your product because they're tired of this pain, they're still getting pleasure from your product eventually, right? So there's always a pleasure point and a pain point, always. And what you're trying to do is trying to make sure that your product lines up with the pleasure point and not the pain point, unless they're motivated by pain, and then you want your product to match the pain point. That it actually solves, that you focus on the pain instead of the pleasure. And you have to know your audience. See, when I used sleight of mouth on this one lady to insert this new image, I was using negativity. I was using the pain point because I knew it would be a stronger motivator. So when you do this with your product, I've seen you do this whenever you actually start to talk about a girl going in to exchange an item and the store wouldn't let her do it.
Right.
And then she picks up the phone, she calls Legal Shield.
Yep.
Right? So that's you right there implementing in everyone's mind right then a pain point that all of us have experienced. So salespeople do this constantly, but they do it without extracting from their audience what that person's pain is. And they just start giving you pain points. And most of the time, what do? Most of the time, whenever a salesman starts trying to sell you on all the benefits of their product and all the pains that people have and why they buy it, what do you do normally?
Just, I'm good, I got that.
You tune them out, right? Because it's not you. It doesn't apply to you. It's not the nicotine hit. It's not the alertness. They don't know your words. Remember that until you extract the right words from your audience, you don't know what to use for sleight of mouth. You have to extract these words from your audience. Always looking for pleasure, always looking for pain. How many people think that smoking or dipping nicotine is a good thing? Most of us don't, correct? These are positive feelings, though. These were good things to him. If you're not listening to your audience and paying attention to what's positive to them, you're going to miss it. You're going to make assumptions. You're going to assume that dipping is bad, that a nicotine hit would be bad. It's not. It was a good thing. That was a good thing for him. That was one of the things that brought him pleasure. That's why you have to incorporate it and use it in the sleight of mouth. You need both pleasure and pain, and you have to extract it from the other person.
And I think that's a good point. So when you look at smoking cessation or getting rid of nicotine habit, period, there's a pleasure always with that habit.
Always, yes.
That somebody has. Like I said, you got to cover what it is. But there's always a pleasure with that.
Oftentimes in neuro-linguistic programming, we use something called a 6-step reframe, where in one part of it we'll ask, what's the positive thing about the problem? What's it benefiting you? How's it helping you? And then we actually have a step where we thank it. We thank the problem for having helped us for a short amount of time and dismiss it. Now, this is very powerful because it's flip-flopping. You've only tried to give yourself a negative association, even though your own mind is telling you this is a good thing, because when you get that nicotine hit, you feel that positive energy. Your brain is sending you all the messages that this is a good thing, even though society's telling you it's nasty, you're spitting, it's embarrassing, you're still getting that nicotine hit. So you're literally lying to yourself. You're telling yourself all these negative things about your habit, but you're feeling positive. That's why you have to be able to hear people's language patterns, because they're lying to themselves. They like their habit, they like their thing, and it's okay for them to like it. It's not their fault. Our pleasure centers in our brain are designed for that. To like those habits. We like overeating. We like binge drinking. We like dipping snuff. We like doing drugs. We like it. And we're lying to ourselves if we don't say that we are, that we do like it. And that's why sleight of mouth works, is because you have to be able to extract from them the positive emotions and the negative emotions. And you have to make sure that the negative association is stronger than the positive association, and that the outcome that they want is actually going to give them the life that they desire. Because a lot of times people will come to you and say, I think I want to stop doing this. And you look at the situation, you check their ecology, you check their home life, and they got a spouse that they've been with for 27 years who also smokes and also drinks. And this is something that they do together every night. What are you guys going to do together? They're not here. Now I'm going to change your mind, change your behaviors, and you're going to go home, and now what? So there are often times that our social circles will not allow these type of changes. The outcome has to be clear. That's why I said, whenever we started, the first thing in your mind has to be a clear outcome. What do we want to accomplish together? In business, in sales, what do you want to accomplish?
Make the sale.
Make the sale, right? That's what we want. Now, who do we want to sell our product to?
People that want to buy it.
People that want to buy it and people who need it. Right. Do you ever have to feel badly about getting your product in the hands of people who want it and people who need it? Right. That's why you can use NLP and sleight of mouth ethically, is to ensure that you're always getting your product into the hands of people who want it or need it. Convince yourself first that the outcome that you desire, which is to get your product in the hands of people who want it and need it, set that up from the get-go that this is a good outcome. It's good for them, it's good for you. Pre-plan that. Lay it out in your own mind first. If you're not convinced of it, then good luck selling your product to anyone. You have to be convinced that it is a good outcome for you to use NLP and sleight of mouth in order to get them connected with your product, the thing they want and need. Okay? Does anyone understand how this can be used in another situation that you want to kind of introduce here? With spouses, with kids? Is there anybody that has an idea of a way that you've done this?
Yeah, I know that, we've talked before in Robert's class and stuff like that about extracting, making sure we hit pain points and uncovering emotional needs of people.
Yes.
Before you even think about trying to lay out any proposal, whatever, and it works in personal interactions as well as
Yes.
business interactions.
And how does Robert tell you to do that?
So you got to ask questions.
Yep.
You
Lots of questions, right?
You got to ask a lot of questions to try to establish what their need is, what their pain point is. And if it's superficial, like I want to lose weight, why do you want to lose weight, right? And uncover that's, well, because I'm 400 pounds and I can't even get up and down the stairs to go take my kid to bed, or I can't play with my wife because all I can do is lay there, right? You gotta get down to uncover the emotional, the really emotional. If it doesn't make you cry, it's not a goal. So
There you go.
Goal setting, right?
There you go. You have to get to the emotional pain point. So the first thing you want to know is, what do you want? That's the first thing. What do you want? What are you doing here? What do you want? Why'd you come in here? What do you want? You have to identify what your customer wants. Why do you want it? How do you know? That's where you get to the emotional pain point. Most powerful question you can ask somebody is, how do you know? You're challenging beliefs when you use that question. It's the most powerful question in the English language, in my opinion. How do you know that?
So I know, like with Virgil's products, we talk about this a lot, about Melaleuca and the natural stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I think one of the things that we have to uncover for people there is a lot of us know that the chemicals and stuff are bad for us, right?
Yes.
How the questions to ask to get people to uncover in their mind how bad they think it really is,
Mhm.
right? How, what kind of things can you ask that say, okay, this is, understand, there's a 1 in 2 chance that men will get cancer, or 1 in 3 that women will get cancer. Do you that's,
There you go.
I mean, For me,
Yeah.
I know that, and that's why we try to start limiting our chemical exposure. But
There you go.
But is that going to change your behavior? It would make you buy a natural product.
Right. So that's how.
Would Mike, but what would it do to someone else in the room? Was there anybody else in the room that right then, whenever Mike started talking about what that product was, you kind of just tuned him out? And you're like, that doesn't apply to me at all?
Well, my first step would be to eliminate certain things rather than buy certain,
There you
spend
go.
more money to buy
Sure.
more other things.
Yeah,
It's
so
like,
see,
what can I
our
cut
minds
out
all
first?
go to our own place. We start to imagine how this applies to us, and then we tune out what you're saying. And this is what happens to salesmen constantly, and that's why asking questions is imperative, is because if you're not keeping your audience engaged with this activity, you are just talking to yourself. You have to extract from them their nicotine hit, their alertness, everything that their language patterns that you're going to need in order to utilize this skill. You're going to have to ask questions. The first one, what is it that you feel like that I can do for you? Or what is it that would bring you here? Why? Why do you need that? And how do you know? How do you know? You will, from this series of questions, you will extract everything you need to have all of the positive and all of the negative that they associate with why they're here and what they're doing here today. Bradley, why are you here today?
Personally,
Mm-hmm.
so I learned about some NLP stuff, and that got me interested.
Mm-hmm.
And the person who I kind of mentee with, was interested in it as well. So I'm scouting.
Yeah.
So
Sure. So right now you're just basically gathering information. You're scouting, you're seeing if this is something that's going to be relevant, and you're just acquiring information right now.
Right.
And that's why you're here.
Right.
How do you know?
Because that was the intention kind of expressed to me from him, and I felt like if anything, I get benefit from it, but that's just pure upside.
And whenever you feel like you get benefit from something, is that valuable to you? Is that something that you...
Absolutely. If it's something that I can utilize in my life that's concrete, that is intentional, that's huge.
Okay.
That's big.
You guys hearing all the positive things that he's associating? Utilize, concrete, benefits, value, all that type of stuff. He's actually feeling all of this stuff too. He's talking a lot about kinesthetics and feelings. Okay? So I extracted all the positivity. Is there anything about this so far that you felt like that is not for you and that you feel like is negative and that you don't like about this?
Sometimes it feels difficult to grasp.
Sure.
Like I'm not smart enough.
Okay.
And that feeling, because I consider myself a smart person,
Sure.
that feeling feels foreign and I don't like it.
Right. And so whenever things feel foreign to you and you don't like them, how do you know that?
I think that I intuit that as me not immediately grasping something.
Okay.
That feels wrong or different, like that feels too hard or not good.
Sure. And are you aware that just by watching another person do something that your mirror neurons are activating, you're actually learning by default?
Absolutely, and that's why I'm all about keep
that-
going, even though maybe
yes.
I don't feel 100%. Like that's
And
why
that you
I'm-
actually benefit in a concrete manner, even if you're not actually aware of it.
Right, exactly. That's what I'm huge on. Like
Right.
I feel like there's a subconscious benefit.
You guys hear that? What just happened there? I associated the feeling of not actually being aware of learning it with concrete and benefit. So actually change the emotional association with not understanding to actually that being a good thing and fine. Not comprehending right away is actually fine. It's a positive thing. It can be a benefit in concrete. Do you guys see that? Using his own words, mapping across to the other thing. That's sleight of mouth, and that's just using the benefits that he gave me and contradicting the negativity that was just offered. Does that make sense? Did everybody see that? Okay, good. All right. So I know that this may seem hard to grasp at first. Yes, ma'am.
But you also gave him a piece of information that was new to him in terms of that mirroring.
Oh, yes.
You know,
Yeah.
and you would have needed to know that. You
Mhm.
didn't just use the words, you pulled in another piece of information that was important to apply here.
Yeah, absolutely. And in sales, that is kind of your job, is to know your product well enough to know how it's actually a positive thing. Okay, one of the things that in Lindsay Management, whenever we were renting apartments, people would come in and they would say, well, do you guys have garages or covered parking? None of the Lindsay Management properties had garages or covered parking. Instead of saying no, we would say, you know, Lindsay Management actually doesn't want to upcharge you or upsell you on any of our amenities, so that's one of the things that we don't do.
So you associate what is really truly a negative.
It's a negative.
You know,
We had a rule
it's
where
like
you never
you're doing
said
a
no.
favor, right?
I made it a rule to where I told everyone that you don't say no, you say it in a way that you're saying no, but you're not saying no, because no is very negative.
Yeah.
Does your car have air conditioning? No. You don't want to hear that. You know, actually, because of the temperatures never exceeding an index that's, you know, much above 100 degrees, in this area, all 4 of the windows go down on their own automatically. But no, we don't. These don't specifically offer air conditioning.
He turns everything positive.
It's always associating what they feel is positive, though. That's really the objective, is to first extract the positive model from them. Because one thing that she noted was that I introduced a new concept that helped him bridge that gap, but it wasn't until I extracted the words from him that would be positive to do that. So yes, I did know something about my product, which is that mirror neurons are activated in just watching someone that he wasn't 100% aware of, but I associated it with the feedback that he gave me, which is concrete, benefits, intuitive. All of those things are words that he gave me. And in order for me to properly bridge my product to be effective to him, I have to use his words.
So I did take it to a habit.
Yes.
So one of my bad habits is procrastinating on paperwork that I don't like to do.
Okay. And whenever you say procrastinating, what do you do instead?
Facebook, whatever the hell else is handy, right?
Right.
Anything, right? But yeah, I'll do email, do whatever to put off having to do the paperwork, which is part of my job.
Right.
Right.
And what about that's negative? Why should you stop doing that?
It's, well, what about the fact it's negative? I really should be I know that I feel better when it's done,
Sure.
right? It's actually a stress knowing that it's stacked up.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a stress for it to stack up, and then it becomes a giant problem to tackle instead of a 5-minute problem, right? So it can take a couple hours to deal with.
Right.
And it's a condition of employment as well, so I need to get it.
Sure.
Get it, right?
Okay.
But-
So we know all the things that would benefit you if you weren't procrastinating,
Right.
but we don't actually know necessarily what about procrastinating that bothers you. What's bad about it? We know all the good things that you would get if you didn't do it, but we don't necessarily know right now what's bad about procrastinating.
The bad thing about that is it could cost me my job.
Okay.
If it gets big enough, right?
Sure.
It looks bad as far as to my boss.
Is that embarrassing?
Yeah, it can be. Yeah, definitely.
You guys remember this word?
Yeah, he doesn't like to be embarrassed. No, he doesn't.
It's a little bit embarrassing,
It's
right?
part of my personality profile.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So then, whenever you are procrastinating and you're kind of doing that confidently and scrolling on Facebook and stuff like that, is it embarrassing to you to know that other people know that you should be doing your work?
Yeah, and I don't know. It doesn't necessarily. It's not apparent to anybody else, but it's just I know it myself, and I'm fairly self-accountable.
Gotcha.
It makes me feel that way, whether anybody else knows or not.
How do you know that you feel that way about it?
Because of the level of anxiety that actually I can, when I think about it, I can actually feel my heart rate climb.
Okay.
I can feel the stress.
Okay.
Anxious, anxiety.
And whenever you feel your heart rate climb and you feel that anxiety, do you not like that, or do you?
No, I don't.
You don't like that
I don't like
particularly.
that at all.
That's not a good feeling.
No.
So, whenever you are procrastinating, from now on, and your heart rate starts to increase and you start to get anxious while you're sitting there scrolling on Facebook, do you think that you'll be more likely to tackle a project?
I think so. I think from being aware of it, and continue,
Yeah.
because in the past, when it's like you tell yourself, okay, I need to go do this, and I do associate the good. I know that I will feel better if I get it done.
Right. Yeah, and you like to feel good, and you like to not feel embarrassed.
Yeah.
So from now on, whenever you are procrastinating and you start to feel anxious and your heart starts to race and you start to feel embarrassed, do you think it's likely that from now on that you'll go ahead and tackle your projects?
I think so.
I think so too.
Can I jump in here? This was exactly my issue as well.
Yes.
And listening to you, it was very similar, but I was thinking, you know, why do we do these things?
Mhm.
If I have all these bad things from procrastinating, why do I do it?
Yes.
So that's why I'm trying to think about.
Right.
And for me, I guess what I came to was, if it's so bad, why am I doing it? I have to do a lot of stuff at work every day that I don't want to do.
Yep.
So when I get to say, no, F that,
So it gives you
it
control.
gives me agency. Like,
Yep.
I've got 22 things I'm supposed to do today. Maybe
So-
I'll do none of them.
So by you procrastinating, it gives you independence, it gives you some autonomy.
As long as I don't get caught. And as long as,
Yeah.
Because that's all the embarrassing and everything. All those negatives only happen
If you get caught.
if I miss
or
a
if it catches
deadline
up
or
to
if
you.
I get caught. But
Right.
if I can go a month on end and do this
That's why
procrastinating every day.
this
as
was
long as
really
I don't get
important.
caught.
This was really important to extract from Mike right then. The reason why was because what you just said is that technically there are no downsides to procrastinating. I'll take care of it. I'll get it handled before it's due, right? I won't lose my job.
And there's that secret thrill of, God, I was supposed to do this 2 months ago.
Yeah.
Nobody found out.
Right.
And I finally just,
Yep.
I had a
So
wild
it gives
hair
you
one day
some-
and
some-
I did it,
yeah.
and it's a payoff.
So you're actually getting a positive feeling from that, whereas Mike wasn't. Mike was getting anxiety. That was making him feel anxious.
Wow.
And so by extracting that, we're able to do the sleight of mouth with him, but it wouldn't work for you.
Well, the
Because
thing
for
is,
you,
I do feel all these things,
Uh-huh.
but I don't feel them every time.
But you,
Right.
but you have a positive side of it as well.
Oh yeah,
there's a payoff, right?
When I leave
So-
work, I'm like, nah.
Yeah, exactly. So see
Another
there,
gig.
so then would the way that I did sleight of mouth with Mike, would that have worked with Bill? Do you guys see how important it is to pay attention to your audience and to listen and to ask questions? Same exact issue from two gentlemen sitting next to one another. I go through sleight of mouth with one, highly effective for the other, not so much. And that's why NLP is so important to learn from a practitioner standpoint, is because it will look like magic when you're watching it. It's not until you start to understand it and be able to utilize it that you understand that it's just listening and just establishing frames of reference, your pragmatics, and your syntax in a sentence. Yes,
Is
ma'am?
there a difference then, I mean, I want to hear with Bill that he's not really too concerned about procrastination.
Correct.
No, that he's not that motivated to change.
Well, Bill's also an attorney, and so he's automatically looking for the holes in Mike's argument.
Like for me, it's all these bad things are doing. Like with the nicotine, it's obvious you get that physical hit, that response, and everything. But something like procrastinating, you know, everybody knows it's bad. Every day that I do it, it potentially gets worse, right? Because I'm just pushing the problem off into the distant future where it's going to get bigger and bigger. So why do I do it? There has to be a reason.
Mm-hmm.
And so what am I getting out of it that I enjoy, or that's
There you
good, or that's right? Because there's there's the avoiding pain, and then there's the running towards pleasure. And so
Yep.
I've got both halves of those. Now,
Correct.
the bad things are all obvious because exactly the same thing. I'll wake up sometimes in the middle of the night from a dream. I'm like, oh shit, I got this thing due.
Right.
You know, and I will have projected into the future of getting caught, of getting called in, you know, to my boss's office, getting, you know, whatever. But then every time that doesn't happen, it's like, woo!
Yeah. It happens to gamblers too.
Yeah.
Yeah, the
It's
same
gambling.
thing.
Yeah, it's kind of
It's
like,
the same thing. Gambling has the same effect. So, yes, ma'am,
But
go
the
ahead.
question I wanted to say
Yes.
is, does it have to do with more motivation? Because I'm not sure you're really motivated to change?
Well, first of all, Mike's the one that introduced procrastination, something that he actually wanted to deal with.
Right.
Bill didn't.
Right.
Bill heard it and then went, "Oh yeah, I do that too."
That's true.
Right.
Yeah.
So one of the things to remember is that Bill didn't actually introduce this as a topic that he wanted to address. So he's basically countering with arguments for a topic that he's not even that interested in.
Okay. Well, that's
Emotional.
That's what that.
Emotionally. And that's why it's important whenever clients hire me is for me to first establish the outcome.
Right, because like even the typical, somebody wants to quit smoking,
Mhm.
right? You gotta get down to the why. Why the hell do you really want to quit this?
Correct.
Is it's going to be strong enough to make you to overpass the pleasure points? Because the nicotine pleasure points are there. For
Exactly. So then the outcome
Yeah, okay.
has to be the most clear thing before you ever start. Now in sales, which is technically what this is supposed to be applied to in today, this is technically supposed to be for sales. Your outcome is to get your product in the hands of people who want and need it. That's the outcome.
So when I'm prospecting for Legal Shield,
Yes.
because my typical 60-second is I'm uncovering several pain points. Like, I know you're pissed off about having to pay a ticket. You couldn't take I knew this person that couldn't do an exchange with a warranty, even though it said right there on the receipt that that she should be able to do that. And they refused that. I had a warranty issue and had to get Legal Shield to write a letter on the washing machine. Does any of that sound like an issue that you've heard of?
There you go. And you've improved so much since I've been watching you from day one to now in your efficacy in bridging those pain points across to your audience. One of the things that I have seen, and this is pretty common, is that most salespeople, and I include myself, whenever we give our 60-second pitch, we're trying to project pain points rapid.
But
One of the things that I've started doing, and this is since I attended Bold and started noticing it, is that when I get up to present for 60 seconds now, most of the time I'll start with a question. Rather than giving one of my scenarios, something that's happened to me in the past, one of the pains that one of my other customers or clients has come to me with, I'll ask a question.
So for me, would that go like, have you ever been in a situation where you might have really wanted to talk to an attorney?
There you go. Yep. Have you guys ever been in a situation where it would have been nice to be able to pick up the phone call,
just right
call an attorney,
Yeah.
and get a solution?
Yeah, that would get anybody's attention.
Right away, I'm going to go, yeah, for sure. And the more vague and ambiguous you can be in that preliminary question,
They fill it in.
they'll fill it. Your audience definitely fills
Or
it.
the one I saw, and it's like, have you ever been in a place where you said you were going to sue somebody if they didn't do what they said,
Yep.
and you want to actually be able to mean it?
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Would you like to be able to have more people fulfill their end of the deal? Because that's what we give you, is that power back. So whenever you ask questions, you're actually giving the power back to the other person. It allows them to stay engaged longer with your content.
So, and that gets you to your why.
That's right.
Okay.
So when anyone comes to you with anything, the primary thing to do is to allow them to fill in and give you everything that you need.
So when I'm networking, just like last night, we were at where I don't know some of the people there, wasn't a Bold event. So would somebody asks, hey, what do you do?
Yes.
It's like, should I start that with a question?
Question.
Like that?
Question. Right away.
Like,
Yeah.
hey, have you ever felt
Absolutely.
like
Jessica has been with me a million times out in public, and somebody will say, "What do you do?" And I'll go, "You ever been to see a psychic?"
yeah, nice lights.
Immediately, people just kind of look at you and go,
Like,
"Huh?
oh, I
Are you
don't pay for
psychic?
it.
What is this?" And it doesn't matter what I say next.
Right.
I'm just trying to get them to engage on a level where they're automatically they're listening,
Right.
and they start to give me more of what intrigues them. So one of the things that has anyone in here ever been to the doctor?
Yeah.
Has anyone in here ever worked with a child or been a child? There are all sorts of ways that you can phrase questions and ask questions that seem legitimate, and they're not. They're not at all. You're just starting the conversation. Here is a powerful phrase that I'm going to give everyone. Write it down and use it as often as you can because it sounds to the person hearing it like it's a question, but it's not. Let me ask you a question. It is the most powerful phrase in a conversation to get somebody engaged. Let me ask you a question.
It's actually an imperative.
Yes.
It's not a
Very
question.
powerful.
I've already stated I will be asking you a question. And then you agree to it. So it's actually a rapport. It's an NLP rapport builder. It immediately is, if the person doesn't walk away, they've established by social contract that they are agreeing to the question. It's a social contract. They're giving you consent by not turning around and walking away. It's automatic rapport. Let me ask you a question. Automatic. They're there. They've consented. Sure. Anything that follows now, they're in.
Yeah. It's like that game you play as a kid. If you agree with me, just stand there.
There you go. Yes. Yep. And if you want to argue, then just, stand there. Yes, sir.
When you were putting out the outcomes or the negatives, do you ever insert or bring in some kind of social pressure or social proof?
If they've provided it to me, which Mike did several times, embarrassment was a big thing for him.
Right.
So I brought in social proof several times. But if you're dealing with an audience that actually is contrary to any type of social validation, that will not help.
Right.
That will be oppositional to them. They will, the minute that you start to say, well, wouldn't that embarrass you? They'll go, I don't give a fuck. I'm embarrassing myself. I don't care what people think about me. I'll do what I want.
Push it farther away.
Push them farther away. Yeah. So you want to make sure that you only use what they give you. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
If it's a social proof, then that's what you want. One of the things that we're going to go over real quick is logical arguments, is that you have A or not A. Okay? In logic, you have either it is A or it's not A. There's only two possibilities, A or not A. Okay? In language, we don't have that. In language, oftentimes, you can give somebody A or not A, and it not be legitimate or valid. Socrates is mortal. All men are mortal, therefore Socrates is a man. Okay, that's a syllogism. It all makes sense, but it's not actually valid. It's not actually a valid argument. That does not prove that Socrates is a man. It does not prove anything. It just sounds like it does. So arguments A or not A is very important in sleight of mouth. When people are telling you it's either this or it's not, they're wrong. There are always more options available in language. So when somebody says, I can't do that because of this, they're wrong. They believe they can't. These are all beliefs. Your reality and your language is determining a lot of what you believe about yourself too. So a lot of times whenever people come to me, like this woman who came to me and said, I keep having these dreams at night. I can't do anything about it. I don't know what it is. I don't know why I'm doing it. I'm having this. Well, all I had to do was emotionally disconnect that. She said, I can't do this. I don't know why I'm doing this. These are all language things that we've told ourselves. We've argued ourselves into a corner on beliefs. And that's why sleight of mouth is so powerful, is that you can actually change someone's beliefs about themselves, because A or not A is not always valid. It's not always a valid argument. They may have constructed an argument in their mind that they think is valid, but all you have to do is swap the negatives for the positives, and their argument will fall apart.
I've seen it a lot in whether it's fitness, diet, whatever. People will give it their excuse. Anybody that says they can't do something
That's right.
is typically they got the wrong image in their mind or wrong phrasing because we know better.
We know better. That's right. There's not anything that humans are incapable of doing. Yes, you can. Yes, you can. You want to do it? Yes, you can. And so that's why this training and this education is so powerful is because we're all about finding the ways that you can. Successful models. And that's why Sleight of Mouth was created, was to figure out a way in language that you can change. You can change outcomes. You can feel a different way. It's all about the idea that there exists a successful model of thinking, of believing, of communicating, and we can find it. And it will optimize your mind and your health for you to get what you want. Does that make sense? I know that this was a bit more vague, and I did a lot more demonstrations today in teaching than the worksheets and doing interactions, but that's because sleight of mouth is a skill that comes along with an outcome, like forming your well-formed outcomes. And NLP is mostly about focusing on well-formed outcomes. You will pick up on this skill the more that you start to focus on the outcome you want and listening to people's language patterns. Listening to them say, like, what was it about that you liked? I liked the nicotine hit. And then focusing on that word rather than your idea of that word. Because when Mike says that, nicotine hit, in my head automatically, I get the idea of what a buzz felt like the first time I smoked a cigarette in my head. That's what I get, is what that buzz felt like. I don't know if that's what he means or not. He didn't use that word. He used the word nicotine hit, so I have to focus on that word. And then if I want to use sleight of mouth, it's most important for me to use those words and then use those words
To associate it with the negative.
That's right. To associate with the negative. And using visualizations and imagination is the most powerful way to do that. So whenever you imagine yourself being nasty, spitting in a cup and being embarrassed and all that, I'm building pictures. Putting you there and making you negatively associate with it. That's the most important part. When you're wanting to break a habit and you're associating it with negative feelings, that's the most important part. If you're wanting to connect somebody with a goal or an outcome that's a positive thing and they're wanting to feel positive, then you connect positive. That's why you have to figure out whether they're driven by pleasure or pain. And I think Bill is more driven by pleasure, and I think Mike's actually more driven by pain. If you guys have noticed that, I don't know if you have, but I noticed it in that if I was going to motivate Bill, I would look more for pleasure patterns, and if I was going to motivate Mike, I'd look for more pain patterns. Did you guys catch that or not? Yeah, you did, right?
When somebody made the association with gambling, to me, that's a gambler typically is it's
Pleasure.
the risk.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Yep, absolutely. I had a client who, actually the other day on Facebook, he kind of, well, I don't know whether or not I'd say that he was recommending me, because he said, when I met James, I was a stockbroker, drove a red convertible, had a 30-year-old girlfriend, and now I'm homeless, unemployed, and living the life that I want to live, thanks to James. So that was his recommendation for me. But
We want to use you.
yeah, because he decided that he didn't want to be a stockbroker. Now he travels around the country and he works campsites. He drives a trailer around and he works RV campsites and things like that. He says he makes more money now. He has more in the bank than he ever has, and he's happier than he's ever been. So one of the things he taught me in sleight of mouth, and whenever he would have a client come in, he would sit down and he would go, now, if you were going to stay in a hotel, a luxury hotel, would you be the type of person that would choose the top floor to where you could see the ocean and see the lights and everything? But remember that if there's a fire or anything like that, chances are you're not getting out. Would you rather be the person that's on the bottom floor to make sure that you're close to all of the restaurants and the dining, get in and out? Or would you consider yourself someone that doesn't really care, in the middle somewhere? Now, he was allowing that person to let him know what type of person they were.
Yeah. Define their risk profile.
Yeah, risk profile. That's all he's doing. So oftentimes, that's what salesmen will do to establish whether you're a pleasure seeker or a pain seeker. That's all they're looking for. And then they're going to talk to you according to what you give them. But most people don't know the difference between visual, auditory, and kinesthetic language patterns either. So once they establish whether you're a pleasure seeker or a pain seeker, they've only got one dynamic. And then they start pursuing that, and they don't know why they're losing the sale. It's because they're not speaking the language of the other person at all. They might identify the pleasure or pain center very clearly, very accurately. They may have a great system for it, and then they lose them on not being able to establish what their linguistic frames of reference are. Their nicotine hit, their alertness, all the things that matter to them and are important to them. You have to make sure that you're listening for those language patterns. People will tell you what's important to them. Parrot them right back and watch them light up like a Christmas tree. Okay? Good job today, guys. I appreciate you coming in. I know that this was a lot of content. I really appreciate you being here today. Thank you very much. Give yourselves a hand.